If you are over 60, there is something your kidneys may desperately need you to hear tonight. Because one of the foods millions of Americans believe is heart healthy may be quietly pushing aging kidneys closer to failure without causing obvious symptoms at first. And the most frightening part is that many people making this mistake are the same people genuinely trying to eat healthier every single day. Your kidneys filter nearly 50 gallons of blood, removing excess sodium, hidden toxins, inflammatory waste, and dangerous fluid your body can no longer handle as easily with age. But after 60, those tiny filtration units begin to weaken, blood vessels stiffen, inflammation builds silently, and certain fish choices, restaurant meals, canned products, and cooking oils can slowly overload that fragile system for years before a person ever notices fatigue, swelling in the legs, foamy urine, or rising creatinine levels on a blood test. This is exactly why so many older adults are blindsided when doctors suddenly mention chronic kidney disease during a routine checkup. What makes this even more dangerous is that kidney damage often develops quietly for years, long before pain appears, which is why people ignore the warning signs. Tonight, I'm going to show you the fish that may help protect your kidneys. The hidden seafood mistakes quietly increasing inflammation inside the body. And the shocking kitchen habit many Americans repeat every week that could be far more dangerous than the fish itself. And once you see it, you may never look at your dinner plate the same way again. Most people think kidney problems begin suddenly, but that is almost never how it happens. Kidney damage is usually a slow, silent process that builds quietly over years, while a person still feels relatively normal. And after the age of 60, that process often accelerates faster than people realize. Inside your body, millions of microscopic filters called nephrons are working every minute to clean your blood, balance fluids, regulate minerals, and remove toxic waste before it can damage your organs. But aging changes that system. Blood vessels gradually become narrower and less flexible. Circulation slows down. Inflammatory stress increases, and the kidneys lose part of their ability to recover from repeated strain the way they once could decades earlier. This is one reason conditions like high blood pressure, diabetes, and chronic inflammation become so dangerous for older adults. Your kidneys are still working nonstop, but they are doing it with less reserve, less resilience, and far less room for daily mistakes. I once spoke with a 1-year-old patient who told me he was doing everything right. He avoided fast food, rarely drank soda, and tried to eat fish several nights a week because he believed it was protecting his heart. But when his blood work came back, his creatinine had climbed again, and early kidney disease was quietly progressing. What shocked him most was learning that some of the foods he trusted most were adding hidden sodium, inflammatory oils, and mineral stress his kidneys could no longer handle efficiently. And this is where many Americans over 60 become vulnerable without realizing it. Because the body often stays silent long before symptoms finally appear. By the time swelling, exhaustion, or abnormal lab results show up, the stress inside the kidneys may already have been building for years. Now, this is where many people over 60 unknowingly begin making a mistake that quietly stresses their kidneys week after week. Because one of the most commonly recommended healthy proteins in America can quickly become dangerous when the wrong type ends up on your plate. Tuna is everywhere. It is cheap, convenient, high in protein, easy to prepare, and often promoted as a smart choice for heart health and weight loss. Many older adults eat it several times a week, believing they are helping their bodies stay strong. And in some ways, they are right. Tuna does provide lean protein that helps maintain muscle, repair tissues, and support circulation, which matters because the kidneys rely heavily on healthy blood flow to filter waste efficiently. But this is exactly where the hidden danger begins. What most people never realize is that many canned tuna products sold across the United States are loaded with sodium, and aging kidneys are extremely sensitive to excess sodium over time. Inside the body, that extra sodium pulls more fluid into the bloodstream, increases blood pressure, and forces already vulnerable kidney filters to work harder just to maintain balance. The frightening part is that this process usually feels completely invisible at first. No sharp pain, no dramatic warning sign. Just slow, silent strain building in the background month after month. I once had a patient tell me he ate tuna almost every afternoon because his doctor warned him to avoid burgers and processed meats. But what he did not realize was that the canned tuna salad he relied on was packed with sodium-heavy seasoning, processed mayonnaise, and hidden inflammatory oils. His intentions were healthy. His kidneys were paying the price. And there is another concern most Americans rarely hear about: mercury accumulation. Larger tuna varieties, especially albacore, can contain higher mercury levels that slowly build in the body with frequent consumption. That does not mean tuna is forbidden. It means your kidneys can no longer afford careless habits after 60. The safer approach is choosing low-sodium tuna, lighter varieties with lower mercury exposure, and simple preparation methods using olive oil, lemon, parsley, celery, or cucumber instead of heavy processed dressings, because when healthy food is prepared the wrong way, the damage often happens quietly long before blood work finally reveals the truth. And what becomes even more dangerous for aging kidneys is not sodium alone, but chronic inflammation slowly spreading through the bloodstream, which is exactly why the next fish may surprise you even more. Now, here is where the story changes. Because unlike tuna, salmon is one of the few foods that can actively help calm some of the silent inflammatory stress damaging aging kidneys after 60. And that matters far more than most Americans realize. Inside the body, chronic inflammation behaves like a slow, invisible fire moving through blood vessels, tissues, and delicate kidney filters day after day. Over time, that inflammation can stiffen circulation, increase blood pressure, and reduce the kidney's ability to remove waste efficiently. This is one reason kidney disease and heart disease are so closely connected, especially in older adults. When blood flow suffers, the kidneys suffer with it. And this is exactly why salmon has become one of the most talked about kidney-friendly fish choices among renal dietitians and doctors across the United States. Salmon is naturally rich in omega-3 fatty acids, nutrients that help support circulation and reduce inflammatory stress throughout the cardiovascular system. In simple terms, healthier blood flow means less strain on vulnerable kidney filters already working non-stop to clean the blood. But this is where many people become dangerously overconfident. They hear the word healthy and assume more is always better. Unfortunately, aging kidneys no longer work that way. Salmon still contains potassium and phosphorus, two minerals that weakened kidneys may struggle to balance properly over time. And when those minerals begin building silently inside the bloodstream, the consequences can become serious, ranging from fluid imbalance to bone weakness and dangerous heart rhythm problems. This is why portion control becomes critical after 60, even with healthy foods. I often remind my patients that protecting kidney function is not about eating perfectly. It is about reducing repeated stress the body can no longer handle efficiently. The safest approach is choosing fresh or frozen salmon prepared simply with olive oil, lemon, garlic, rosemary, or dill, instead of heavily processed sauces or restaurant glazes packed with sodium and sugar, and avoid smoked salmon whenever possible. Because many varieties contain shockingly high sodium levels that quietly force aging kidneys into even greater stress. But inflammation is only one part of the problem. Because the next fish creates a completely different challenge that many Americans misunderstand entirely. And this is where adults begin realizing that kidney protection is no longer about avoiding unhealthy foods. It is about understanding how aging organs respond differently to foods once considered harmless. The frightening truth is that the body can stay silent for years while inflammation and mineral stress build, and the next fish on this list sits inside that dangerous middle ground. This is where kidney health becomes more confusing for many Americans over 60 because tilapia sits in a strange middle ground that most people completely misunderstand. It is not one of the worst fish for your kidneys, but it is also not the powerful healing food many people assume it is. And that difference matters more than you think. Tilapia became extremely popular across the United States because it is affordable, mild tasting, easy to cook, and widely available in restaurants, grocery stores, and frozen meal products. For older adults trying to avoid red meat and eat lighter meals, it often feels like a safe choice. And in some ways, it is. Tilapia provides lean protein that helps maintain muscle strength and tissue repair without the heavy saturated fat burden found in many processed meats. It is also easier to digest for many seniors, especially those already struggling with fatigue or slower digestion. But here is the hidden issue most people never hear about. Tilapia does not provide the same anti-inflammatory protection found in fish like salmon. In other words, it may not heavily damage the kidneys when prepared correctly, but it is also not actively helping calm the inflammatory stress quietly building inside aging blood vessels over time. I often tell patients to think of tilapia as a neutral fish, safe, but not protective, and this is where eating habits become dangerous after 60. Many people repeat the same meals every week for years without ever understanding what those foods are truly doing inside the body. Then suddenly, declining kidney function appears almost out of nowhere. The safer approach is keeping tilapia simple and clean. Bake it, grill it, or lightly pan-sear it with olive oil, garlic, lemon, or herbs, instead of breading it or frying it in processed oils. Because once inflammation and sodium overload enter the picture, even a safe fish can quietly become another source of kidney stress over time. For many people over 60, kidney-friendly eating begins to feel overwhelming after a while. One doctor says, limit sodium. Another warns about phosphorus. Then someone else tells you to watch potassium, protein, processed foods, inflammation, and blood pressure all at the same time. And eventually, many older adults become afraid to eat almost anything. This is exactly why cod stands out as one of the safest and most dependable fish choices for aging kidneys. Cod is not flashy, it is not trendy. But for stressed kidneys, simplicity can become incredibly powerful. Unlike many processed seafood options sold across the United States, cod is naturally lower in sodium, potassium, and phosphorus, which makes it easier for weakened kidneys to manage without creating as much hidden mineral stress inside the body. And after 60, that matters more than most people realize. As kidney function slowly declines, the body loses part of its ability to maintain healthy mineral balance. Sodium can increase fluid retention and blood pressure. Excess phosphorus may slowly weaken bones and damage blood vessels. Potassium imbalances can even affect the heartbeat. But cod places less pressure on that already fragile system while still providing clean, lean protein the body needs to preserve muscle and maintain strength during aging. I often explain it this way to my patients. Your kidneys are still working hard every hour of the day. But now they need foods that create less internal chaos. And cod does exactly that when prepared correctly. The problem is that many Americans rarely eat cod in its healthiest form. Instead, they eat it deep-fried as fish and chips, coated in processed batter, overloaded with sodium, and cooked in heavily reheated oils that quietly increase inflammatory stress throughout the bloodstream. At that point, much of the kidney-friendly benefit is destroyed before the meal even reaches the table. The safer approach is baking. broiling, steaming, or lightly poaching cod using olive oil, garlic, parsley, rosemary, or lemon instead of salty sauces and fried coatings, because once aging kidneys become overwhelmed by inflammation, excess minerals, and poor circulation, the damage often progresses silently long before symptoms finally appear. And while cod helps reduce some of that burden, the next category of seafood creates a completely different problem that many people never see coming until it quietly begins affecting the entire body. Now, this is where things become far more dangerous and far more confusing for many Americans over 60, because shellfish sits in one of the most misunderstood categories in kidney health. Foods like shrimp, crab, lobster, clams, mussels, and scallops are often promoted as lighter seafood options. And many people assume that because they come from the ocean, they must automatically be healthy for aging kidneys. But this is exactly where hidden problems begin building quietly beneath the surface. Shellfish can absolutely provide important nutrients the body needs after 60, including protein, selenium, zinc, and vitamin B12, all of which help support energy, nerve health, muscle maintenance, and immune function. And for older adults trying to avoid heavily processed meats, shellfish can sometimes feel like a safer alternative. But the problem is not always the seafood itself. The real danger often comes from what shellfish quietly carries with it: excess sodium, hidden phosphorus, rich sauces, restaurant seasoning, and inflammatory cooking methods that aging kidneys may no longer tolerate well over time. And unlike high blood sugar or sudden chest pain, the phosphorus buildup inside the body can remain almost completely silent for years. As kidney function weakens, the body becomes less able to remove excess phosphorus efficiently. Slowly, that mineral begins building inside the bloodstream, increasing stress on blood vessels, weakening bones, and forcing already vulnerable kidneys to work even harder to maintain balance. Many people never feel this process happening until lab results suddenly begin showing abnormal kidney function, mineral imbalance, or early chronic kidney disease. I have seen patients shocked to learn that the healthy seafood dinners they ordered several nights a week were loaded with sodium-heavy seasoning, butter-based sauces, and fried coatings cooked in reheated oils. And this is why shellfish become so dangerous after 60. The damage rarely comes from one meal. It comes from repeated habits the body can no longer recover from efficiently. The safest approach is choosing fresh shellfish prepared simply by steaming one item, grilling, boiling, or baking it with olive oil, garlic, herbs, or lemon instead of heavily processed restaurant preparations. Raw shellfish should also be avoided whenever possible, especially for older adults with weakened immune systems or declining kidney function, because once inflammation, mineral overload, and circulatory stress begin quietly building together inside the body, the kidneys often stay silent long before serious damage finally appears. And what makes this next part even more alarming is that the biggest kidney danger may not be the seafood itself at all. But here is the part almost nobody talks about. And for many Americans over 60, this may be the single most important thing in this entire video to understand, because the greatest danger to your kidneys may not actually be the fish sitting on your plate. It may be the way that fish is being cooked inside your kitchen every single week. Over the years, I have seen countless patients genuinely try to improve their health by eating more seafood, cutting back on red meat, and choosing lighter meals, only to unknowingly cancel those benefits with one hidden habit repeated over and over again: cooking with overheated and repeatedly reused oils. And this is where kidney damage becomes incredibly deceptive. Most people assume that if a meal does not taste greasy or unhealthy, then it must be safe. But deep inside the body, something very different may be happening. When oils are heated to extremely high temperatures, especially refined vegetable oils, commonly used across the United States, like soybean oil, corn oil, canola oil, and blended restaurant frying oils, their chemical structure begins breaking down. As that happens, inflammatory compounds and oxidative byproducts start forming inside the oil itself. And once those compounds enter the bloodstream repeatedly over time, they can quietly increase inflammatory stress throughout the entire cardiovascular system, including the tiny blood vessels feeding the kidneys. Imagine millions of delicate kidney filters already weakened by age, high blood pressure, diabetes, or declining circulation. Now imagine those filters being exposed again and again to inflammatory compounds created by deep frying, processed coatings, and reheated oil used multiple times throughout the week. The frightening part is that this damage almost never feels dramatic in the beginning. Most people feel completely normal, while inflammation slowly spreads through blood vessels. Circulation becomes less efficient, and the kidneys are forced to work harder just to maintain balance. This is why some people become confused when their kidney numbers worsen, even though they believe they are eating healthier foods like salmon, tilapia, or shrimp. The problem is not always the seafood. Sometimes the real damage begins in the frying pan, long before it reaches the plate. I once spoke with a patient who proudly told me he had replaced burgers with fried fish dinners several nights each week to eat healthier, but when we looked closely, nearly every meal was being cooked in heavily reused oil at extremely high temperatures. His food choices changed. The inflammatory stress inside his body did not, and many older adults never connect their fatigue, swelling, or worsening creatinine levels to the cooking methods they have trusted for decades. Because the damage develops quietly while the body continues adapting until it finally cannot compensate anymore. This is why baking, steaming, grilling, broiling, or lightly sautéing seafood with olive oil, garlic, and herbs, or lemon becomes far safer for aging kidneys than deep frying or restaurant-style preparations. Because after 60, your kidneys do not simply respond to food alone. They respond to the invisible patterns repeated in your kitchen day after day, year after year, long before symptoms finally reveal the damage. Today, I want you to remember something very important. Protecting your kidneys after 60 is not about fear, starvation, or giving up every food you love. It is about understanding the small daily habits that quietly shape your health over time. Throughout this video, we uncovered how certain fish can support circulation, reduce inflammation, and provide cleaner protein for aging kidneys when prepared correctly, but we also expose the hidden dangers many Americans never see coming, including excess sodium, phosphorus overload, inflammatory cooking oils, and repeated kitchen habits that slowly increase kidney stress year after year. Your kidneys do not respond to one unhealthy meal. They respond to patterns, and the good news is that healthier patterns can begin changing your future starting today. Choosing grilled salmon instead of fried seafood, using olive oil instead of reheated frying oil, limiting processed sauces, and paying attention to portion sizes may seem small, but over time, these choices can help protect circulation, energy, and long-term kidney function. If this video helped you better understand your body, take a moment to save it so you can revisit these kidney health tips later. And subscribe to the channel for more trusted medical guidance designed to help older adults stay healthier, stronger, and more independent. After 60, please like this video and share it with someone you love, especially a parent, spouse, or friend trying to manage high blood pressure, diabetes, or early kidney disease. Your body is still fighting for you every single day, and it is never too late to start protecting your health in return. Before you go, tell me in the comments which fish surprised you the most today and why.